Hi, this is fine. Welcome to Final Fantasy remake discussion. Did I do it right? The Golden Bolt.
I don't know. I was busy burping.
That's fair. Okay. So this is look, no one's talked about spoilers about this game. It just came out. And so we thought we're the experts on Final Fantasy. This is the channel for Final Fantasy discussion.
We are recording this on March 3rd, 2020, the day that it came out for real.
It's true. We got our Square Enix early copies, hashtag sponsored. If we cover any other Square Enix game in the next year, we have to say that we covered this game, because that's a sensible, logical policy for anything. No, but we are discussing full spoilers. So if you're just like, oh man, I wonder if guy don't remember and guy I've never heard of like the game. Hey, we liked it, but go away, because we're not discussing anything in any order. So I might at any moment just scream out the final scene of this game. So go away. Bye. Come back later. So, Mr. The Golden Bolt of the Golden Bolt channel, who I will now refer to as Kevin because I'm a human being. Did you like the game?
Yeah, it's alright.
This is an intro. I don't know how to intro these videos anymore. Yeah, it's just okay. What is your history of Final Fantasy VII? Because I asked you to do this with me like a week ago, and then I just now realized I assumed your history with this game, but I don't actually know it.
So, my history with Final Fantasy VII is that I played
No one cares!
Final Fantasy 15 VR fishing, because my favorite thing about Final Fantasy 15 was the fishing and the loading screens. So when they made a game that had both, I was in.
Those were the two best parts of 15. As someone who hasn't played that game, I can tell you.
No, I've
It's like when the Kirby spin-offs take like one mini game and make it an eShop game. It's like, oh, finally, the DDD Drum Bash from Kirby Triple Deluxe.
Can't wait for oiled up buff DDD wrestling.
Okay,
This is we are several minutes into this discussion.
No, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
So my history with Final Fantasy, in general, I've dabbled in most of the games. I can't say I've beaten too many of them, just because it took me a long time to get into traditional JRPGs. Just for no reason other than that I just didn't have them. But I've played a good amount of 7 original, though I didn't play it until relatively recently. But I got about, I think, halfway through, maybe a little bit less than halfway through. It's been a little while since I played it, but I got to get back to it at some point because, man, I loved the remake.
Okay, for some reason I just thought you never played the original until now, so I'm glad I asked.
Well, when I say recently, I should say like it was like last year when it came to Switch. I picked it up and I put like 15 or 18 hours in, somewhere thereabouts, and I did it sped up, so technically I put less time in. Because I'm not playing that game for the combat. I'm sorry.
That's fair. As for me, at yard sales growing up, I got Black Label copies of 8 and 9 for the PS1 very cheaply. And strategy guides for both of them, actually. I had that really shitty Final Fantasy IX play online guide where every page is like, go to the website. As a kid with no internet access, I was like, what? The only Final Fantasy game I beat was 13, which I put 118-ish hours into to get all the achievements, and after beating this remake, I've played more of 7, but until then, I got to the Don Corneo build-up, aka 2 hours in. My attention span doesn't let me play RPGs, but this one I hyper-fixated on, because I had to fucking... There's like several points in this game, I guess to like get into this now, of like... where this game just like got my attention, grabbed me, gripped me, and wouldn't let go. And I'd say like it got my attention because the opening bombing mission, just like the Scorpion boss goes on a little long, yeah, whatever. But like it's just fucking fantastic. I don't know, almost everything about that was just working for me, firing off on all cylinders. I was like, holy shit, this is cool. Like this world's cool. I like these characters. What's happening is cool. It's interesting. I like the combat. I was just fucking on board completely. And Did you agree? Is that a weird opinion?
No,
I thought it was fucking great.
So for more reference to my experience with the remake, I didn't play the demo. I downloaded the demo, but I never played it because I was busy doing video things, and so I had sworn to myself that even though I had the special edition pre-ordered, I wasn't going to start it until I got to a certain point in my video productions that I was ahead for a few weeks. Just because I had just played Yakuza 3. Yes, we're going to mention Yakuza a lot in this video. We have to. But I had just finished Yakuza 3, and that took up a week of my life. And a really good week of my life for as much as different game. Anyway. And so I didn't want to play another game that was such a time investment back to back because I knew I wouldn't make a video for like 2 months. And that's never good. So I didn't play the demo. I got the game a few days after it came out because the special edition shipped like a week later. And I didn't play it until start of May. We're in May right now, in case you didn't actually know. So, yeah.
That one person's like, oh, thank God.
Oh, they got the timelines right. Thank God. They did better than Nomura. But yeah, so I essentially just put all of my time into Final Fantasy VII for a remake for a straight week this past 2 weeks ago. And I just absolutely adored it. Like, every moment that I was awake, I was pretty much playing that game. Just because I don't have we're all inside right now. So
it's very easy to play a long game in a short amount of time right now, for sure.
Yeah, and I did everything. So before, we'll touch on some of the everything later, I'm sure. But I did all of it, every side quest, found most of the weapons. I missed like one or two, I think. Just absorbed myself in everything except for the second arena, because that was a really dumb spot for arena.
Yeah, I was about to follow up and ask if you did the hard exclusive arena things there.
No, I didn't do that stuff yet. I didn't do any of the hard mode stuff. Just base game of 1 did all of that. I'm gonna go back, I think, which is saying a lot. I didn't expect that I would go back, but because I wasn't very excited for this game. Like, before it came out, there was a certain point that it kind of clicked that I was like, okay, part 1 I think is going to be good. Part 2 is going to be a disaster. And after...
Because the lead-up was so, like, A, there's Square Enix's recent track record, right? B, this game was announced in 2015. And then C, they, like, booted out the people who were working on it, essentially, for all intents and purposes of this discussion. And we're like, we got to bring this shit in-house. Holy shit. And as far as we could hear, it kind of restarted development. So there was a lot of stuff you could look at and be like, I don't know about this.
Not to mention that Nomura was working on Final Fantasy 15, and then also 15. Kingdom Hearts 3 at the same time. And then after 15 was finished, moved on to just Kingdom Hearts 3 and Final Fantasy 7, and then he had a year of proper solely focusing on Final Fantasy 7 as a director. On paper, at least. Again, we're boiling this down pretty simply, but I didn't see how it would work, especially for a game where they're stretching out 5 hours into 40. Well, 30. I'm not going to call it 40. It's 30 hours.
Okay. I can't really find any fault in that statement.
For me, at least. I beat the game in about, I think it was 33 hours was my final log, and that not counting when when I would die and restart here or there. Mainly on that final boss area. But, yeah.
I got through that on one run. Meanwhile, the fucking bandits that get you right after Aerith goes to get her hair done or whatever, I game over like 8 times in a row on them.
I think I died twice to them, so I can relate. It was a weird... It's just the small space. You're so cramped. We should probably talk about what the combat is in Final Fantasy VII when we're talking about cramped.
Okay, yeah. I was going to take it from you, but I want to hear how you explain the combat as cramped.
Well, no. I don't mean that the combat is cramped. I mean that, like, when you played Final Fantasy VII, there weren't areas that got cramped. Like,
oh no, it was just a rectangle, and then you wind up on 2 sides of it. Yeah.
Whereas now it's a real-time action RPG combat system, not too dissimilar from Final Fantasy 15, Kingdom Hearts, but very much brought back into the Final Fantasy VII style with ATB gauges where that build up as you attack, that you can then slow down time and do the traditional spells and special abilities and all that stuff. And I didn't expect this combat to be as good as it was, because I remember back when this was first being shown off as gameplay, which was, I don't even think it was actually gameplay. They just made a trailer that they said was gameplay and wasn't. And the whole thing was that you could only control Cloud, it seemed like. You could kind of control Barret, but it was mainly just Cloud, so it looked like Final Fantasy 15 again. And that didn't really feel like it made sense for this game, knowing what you know about Final Fantasy 7, where it's a great cast of characters that you know, each have a relatively standard role, but they all have that unique flavor to them. So the fact that you can play as 4 different characters, and they all are very, very different, and like locked very much into classes, I didn't expect that.
Yeah. Have you went back and watched that first gameplay showing recently, by the way? Because I watched that last night, and holy shit, it was rough. It was all the same notes, cutscene choreography, it was like all the same. But man, the gameplay was fucking rough back then. Oh my god.
I have a hazy memory of it, but I just remember being like, that's not really what I would expect from this game. That's not a good sign.
Yeah, it was running at like 15 frames per second. It was like very particle heavy, and I was like, what? It's so much better now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've only played Kingdom Hearts 1, Kingdom Hearts 3, and I've never touched 15. But I feel like when I enjoyed KH3, but that was like I'm going to mash the buttons and not think about it because I have 40 million uber powerful moves that'll just screen clear, essentially. But this combat is weirdly fantastic, I want to say.
Yeah, I mean...
And I wasn't expecting that. I thought at worst I would be like, okay, well, you'll mash a button, it'll be kind of light, mindless hack and slash, and you can pull off some really visually, cool stuff now and then, but it's constantly challenging, it's constantly interesting, and it's like, I never had a dull moment with it, because there's always something I could be doing, like slotting materia differently, or trying a different character, and trying to work out, like, everyone has classes, but like, I made Barret a tank healer, but a lot of people I've seen made him like their offensive magic guy, right? So just like finding out how you can do that, going into all the weapon upgrades, going into deciding which upgrades in the weapon upgrades you want to get, because you can spec characters a little differently, ways like that. The positioning matters a lot more than I thought at first, because there's a lot of times where you'll be like, okay, I'm going to use Cloud's Braver, and then the enemy runs away, and Cloud just looks like a fucking idiot, and hits a sword on the ground. It's just like, I was even just doing the stupid side quest, which we'll say aren't that great. I was never bored with this game's combat, and I was expecting... I enjoyed KH3 because that was a visually spectacular power trip, right? I'd never had to think too much about it outside of bits and pieces, and I thought this would be that, and it is everything I thought I was getting into with KH3, and it feels like kind of like delivering on the idea of that gameplay, and by that gameplay I mean like action gameplay, not specifically just Kingdom Hearts. It's so fucking good.
Yeah,
I know I'm just like going on about it, but
no,
I've been holding this in for like a week.
The only things, like the one thing I want to say before I want to say what I wish they would have added is we had talked about this when we were chatting about the game over the week because I think you started right around the same time I did, but you started like a day before me, and then I just blasted through it. So I've been like holding all of this in for a few days, like finish the fucking game, and we had talked about how there were only about 100 enemies, 110, somewhere thereabouts. There's not many enemies, and a lot of them are recolors, reskins, usual RPG sort of fodder. But that didn't matter. Like, 100 enemies is a lot, don't get me wrong, but like a lot of them are very similar. It's like, here's guard A, here's guard B, here's elite guard.
Shield.
Here's
guard that flies.
Yeah. Like, there's a lot, and a lot of them are similar, but like, they always found a way to make the very simple level progression of here's a new enemy in isolation, here's another of that enemy again with more enemies, here's 2 of that enemy. Like they always it's very by the numbers, the way that they structure the combat part of the game. You really don't like see much out of nowhere progression or anything outside of the first boss after Don Corneo, I would say, which also stellar boss.
That's a great boss, yes.
But even though it was very by the numbers progression, it just worked. It just really, really worked. And the only thing I would have liked to see them add, I think, kind of out of Xenoblade, is positioning based attacks, or like And they kind of almost did this a little bit here and there, but I didn't feel like there was enough of this where you'd have an enemy who, you know, you would hit them from the side and it would do more damage, because in Final Fantasy VII, you just focus on either an enemy, or if it's a boss, you'd focus on like a body part. So you could focus on the head, if the head's a specific part that you need to do to stagger it or whatever.
Or like their arm cannons or something like that.
Basic, you know, JRPG combat system, where I would have liked to see something more out of Xenoblade, where it's like, oh, you know, Cloud has a backslash. Not that that'd be very out of Final Fantasy VII, but this felt like the combat system I've always kind of wanted out of Xenoblade. Just minus the part that I like the most about Xenoblade, which is a weird thing to say.
And they get like you said, they do get there a few times. Like, specifically, what comes to my mind are the flamethrower guys, and they're like, if you slice this guy from the back, you'll fucking disrupt his gas canister
and he'll blow up. Yeah, like that. Like it's every now and then, but it's not always.
Yeah, it's very sparse, and those guys don't have much health because they're human beings.
Yeah,
so you just kind of cut right through them, and they probably die by the time, you know, halfway through their explosion. You're like, oh, that's that.
I love that Barrett can fucking kill giant monsters, and then he'll struggle with 3 Shinra guards. Like, it don't always that throws me off sometimes, but I just find it funny.
For all of his grandstanding and showcasing, he struggles the most with taking actual lives of humans. Don't worry, he's a good guy.
God, some lore.
But yeah, I'm afraid to start the hard mode due to the limitations it puts in place.
Yeah.
But it also sounds intriguing, because I feel like, even after 40 hours of going through this game, I feel like I kind of only scratched the surface on some aspects of this battle system.
Yeah.
And I've, you know, a few days removed from the game, I've been going through Original 7 just because I'm fucking, like, obsessed at the moment. But in my off hours, my mind still drifts to the combat, and I'm like, I made Cloud a purely physical attacker, but there is that magic focused sword you get near the end of the game, and I was like, what if I just made him like a magic attacker and like swapped Barrett over to like his, you know, up close weapon? And I'm just thinking about this stuff like, oh man, I wonder which enemies are better with that and all this stuff. And I haven't thought about a game's combat in this way in a long time. It's very, very fun.
No, absolutely. Like my Cloud was pretty varied for most of the game. Most of my characters had a good amount of variance to them. Like most of them had, you know, cure of some sort, because I was dumb, and that's the thing. Like you said, there's stuff that you keep learning. I learned on the final boss fight. I learned things, and they were important things that I just didn't know how to read or something, or I just missed it. But there's just so many different, like I didn't know that Prey was not a mana using ability, which is important for hard mode, because on hard mode you can't regen your mana because items are blocked. You can't use items at all, as far as I know. But then also when you sit at a bench, or, you know, sleep in an inn, in the rare case you have an inn, you don't regen your mana, so you have a set amount of mana for the entire level unless you use one of your abilities that regens mana. So it's like
That's where I get scared. Yeah.
Yeah, like I use spells a lot. So the fact that I didn't realize that Prey was a regular move, oops.
Yeah, thankfully I clued into that pretty quickly, because Tifa hits quick, so I gave her materia that like boosts the ATB generation rate. So anytime I needed healing, I just swapped to her, got some quick hits in, got her to 2 bars, used Prey, and I was like constantly funneling health back in that way, and it felt awesome. I felt like I broke the system a little bit, even though obviously it's made for that. But I felt like I cheated things a little bit, and it felt really cool.
Yeah, and like, I know for me, one thing that kind of finally clicked, that I kind of realized subconsciously, but it clicked with me during part of that final boss rush, which I'm just going to say it's Bahamut. It's not the final boss, but Bahamut, he's involved, and that is the hardest fight in the game. If you are not 100% prepared, you will die.
Okay, as I was going through, there was a boss you warned me about, and as I was going through, I was like, it must be the Jenova fight, because that might have been the most difficult fight I had personally through that entire run, just because, like...
That's interesting.
It stops your characters so often, and I kept winding up with Aerith, and I totally didn't build Aerith with any thought, because you don't get her too much of the game where it matters that much, right? So it kept kicking me over to Aerith, and I was like, oh fuck, I didn't do shit with Aerith. Oh god, oh hell. So I was not having a good time.
That fight was weird, but it was just long. Like, I didn't struggle with it at all. I like, it just didn't matter to me. Like it was just took a little while, and like you get stopped a lot, but eventually I did it.
What about Bahamut did it for you? Because I felt like I just fucking chewed through him.
So
no thought.
The thing was that he came up, and I was like, "Oh fuck, it's Bahamut. That's a bad thing." And he would down Cloud before I could do a single thing, and I could get him down to maybe half health. But he was just so fast and just hits like a fucking truck that there was just no way for me to get like. By the time that he would do one attack, it would kill Cloud, and then I'd have to switch over to Aerith or Tifa to heal. And by the time I healed, then revived Cloud rather, not heal. That one's dead. So it was just me spinning and reviving, and then he uses his instant almost kill attack.
You were playing hot potato with deaths, basically. I got
yeah,
you.
which I did a good amount of times in this game, which I didn't expect. But almost every time I was able to make it out of it because you can strategize and you can make it work. But with that fight, that's where I kind of was like, okay, I'm not sure what I have to do here. And this is, mind you, there are 18 chapters in this game for those of you that may not have played it. Chapter 15 through 18, the last 4 chapters of the game, the last like 4 hours of this game, are a one-shot run. You can't go back. So
I can't remember the last game I played that had 4 separate point of no returns.
Yeah, there were so many. And I kept checking.
They just kept going up and being like, "Hey, Cloud, are you sure?" Yeah. It's like, I was sure the last 2 times. I can't really go anywhere, so sure.
Yeah, it was just like I was afraid at a certain point because I knew there was a good vending machine right before that. That the final boss rush, there's no checkpoint. So if you die, you start that entire run over. So you fight all of the big fucking Heartless, and you just. Like, I died, I think, 3 times. And I was at 3rd time, I was like, okay, let me see what I'm doing wrong here. Because I'm doing something wrong, clearly, and I just don't know what I can do to stop Bahamut. And that's why I told you to use, what was the barrier? To use Mana Guard?
That's what you told me. I forgot about that and didn't even use it.
You don't really super need it. Like, I didn't need it when I fought him and beat him, because I wiped him real quick. The thing I just needed to do was use Cloud's heavy mode. I didn't realize that.
That's another thing I want to try in another playthrough is because I barely used that.
So the thing for me was I for some reason, again, maybe I just didn't read, or maybe it just slipped my mind over the course of the 30 hours, but I didn't really use the heavy mode super duper much, unless I just wanted to, pile on damage, but it has a parry, like built in. You just block and then it parries. Oh. Which you use against Bahamut.
Okay, yeah.
And
I was watching someone do the Sephiroth fight right before we did this because I was trying to refresh myself on that because a lot happens at the end of that game. And I kept seeing him parry Sephiroth, and I'm like, that must be one of the materia things because I didn't have that. And now you're saying that, and I'm like, oh my god, I totally missed out on a basic aspect of this game.
Yeah, like there's so many, and maybe that's a testament to the game not being explained too well, you could argue, but I didn't mind it. Like, I genuinely liked how much I continued to learn as I played the game. Because it makes me want to try hard mode as much as I'm afraid of hard mode.
Yeah, me too. I should say, I forgot to mention earlier, I had 12 growing up. But this battle system, the whole pausing time to make a decision thing, that's taken from 12. It mixes in stuff from Kingdom Hearts. It mixes in stuff from Final Fantasy 15. And in many ways, this game just feels like... I was never into Square Enix properties, but I always kind of had an appreciation of them. And this game just feels like they distilled the best of everything they've been doing for years into a game, and then it actually turned out great.
Yeah, I mean,
instead of you play Kingdom Hearts and you're like, well, the story is these characters are robots, but it's fun. The combat's kind of cool, and then you look at the production value of a Final Fantasy, and that's in here. And
it's got 13's hallways,
this game is Final Fantasy 13 but better edition, which
is fascinating.
That's not a fresh take, but that's fucking true.
I've seen that take around, and I've thought the same thing when I was playing through. It's just fascinating that this game did not 1-to-1 the things that 13 did, but the stagger system is relatively similar to 13. The linear structure is very similar to 13, and
the PlayStation 2 level design is very similar.
yeah. I
say that with love. But it's crazy how fucking straightforward most of it is.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I think it works for what they did.
Yeah.
Especially given at this point, limitations of the PS4, which I hate saying the system has limitations because, go back and play PS3 games, trust me.
Yeah.
But it's the loading barriers, the hallways. I was just writing a thesis paper, not a thesis paper, but like a final paper about this, which kind of turned into a thesis about how this game. I don't know why I chose this game, but I had just beaten it before I did the final. But I don't know. I'm a nerd. But it was for one of
shame him in the comments. It's no.
It was for one of my programming classes. I was talking about how utilizing load barriers is like one of those things where you have to overcome limitations, and this whole class was about overcoming technical limitations, essentially. So it just lined up perfectly. That it was just like every time I went through one of those little, the shimmy corridors, and it's like, oh yeah, it's one of those again. Like there's a lot of them, but the game never loads except for between chapters or if you fast travel or die. The dying load screens are pretty bad.
Yeah.
Which I get it, but that's probably my biggest complaint, because I did die a good amount of times.
One thing that maybe didn't turn out so well from like the maybe rebooted development is that this game came with a data disk, is 90 gigabytes, and feels kind of unoptimized, but it worked out.
Yeah.
Because at times this game is one of the visually nicest games I've seen in a while, and at other times it is definitely one of the ugliest I've seen in a while. It handles both ends of that spectrum pretty well. Like the particle effects and the lighting during like the Ifrit summon is fucking like mind blowing. And then you go to a town and you look at things and go, okay.
Yeah. The
thing that stood out to me is like you get that little apartment, to cut you off real quick, and Cloud's like opening the door. The only things in frame are Cloud's character model in the door, and it looked like one texture. I don't know if that was my playthrough messing up.
What is wrong with the flowers? They zoom in on those flowers so much during cutscene. The yellow Aerith flower. They zoom in on those frequently during cutscenes, and they look like a fucking Wii texture. Like that's the one thing you'd think they would get right. Right? Like, apparently, I think there was some sort of bug where certain textures weren't loading right, and I don't know if it was patched or not yet. I would have thought it's been a month. You'd think that would be fixed, but
I remember reading about it, but maybe they didn't, because I don't feel like I updated my game.
It's just fascinating, because my first thought was like, what? Because they kept zooming in on them. I thought maybe the first time was like, oh, maybe that just didn't load in right or whatever, and then it just kept happening where it's just a pale shade of yellow, just blasted across this flower, and it's just no articulation or anything. And I was just thinking, like, God, like Breath of the Wild focuses on a flower in part of its scenes, and that flower is higher res, despite being Breath of the Wild, the game that's not very high res.
I did see a tweet, and this was like at 5:07 a.m., right? So I don't fully remember, but it was someone technically minded with like a hacked PS4 or whatever, like looking into the Unreal Engine stuff, and they were like, oh yeah, some of the coding is preventing a lot of the textures from popping in. Like if you change this, and this, like some of the shit looks really good. And they had some screenshots of like the Midgar background textures that can look kind of sometimes.
the weird what did I think they were? Mr. Rogers played like the background of Mr. Rogers like playhouse area, not the playhouse, but the neighborhood. Yeah, that's the first thing I thought.
Yeah, and they posted them, and I was like, oh, those look much cleaner, huh?
Yeah. Well, maybe the PS5 version will fix these basic problems.
Yeah, undoubtedly there'll be a PS5 version. It'll probably look pretty fantastic, and I'll probably be like, man, what if I bought and played this game again?
What if I got the special edition twice?
What if I got the special edition twice? I'm just saying.
Yeah, But despite those problems, I know we're dunking on the game visually now. It still looked.
This game fucking sucks.
Like every cutscene, minus I think 3, 1 at the very start and 2 at the very end, are like in-engine cutscenes. As far as I can tell, either that or they made several pre-rendered cutscenes for each different gear option that Cloud has, which I don't think they did. Mm-hmm. Like. And there are times you can tell the lip syncing is awful, but that's what you expect from these games now, so it's not a huge deal. But there are other times where the lip syncing is on point and Cloud's holding the sword that you are equipped him with at that point. Like, it's not the Buster Sword. The only time they do the Buster Sword is in the final cutscene, which it was just weird to me because like these cutscenes were just so absolutely beautiful. Like one of the best looking games, period, at this point. To the point where when they did the pre-rendered cutscenes at the end for the Sephiroth fight and the post-Sephiroth fight stuff, it looked
weird, didn't it?
It looked off-putting. Like I was like, this, like,
Yeah.
like Cloud's eyes are wrong. Like that's not right. Like it looks weird.
It's like I got used to this level of detail on Barret, and seeing Barret's head with even more detail, I was like, that's not Barret.
Yeah. And like seeing Cloud's hair like fluff a little bit in the wind was just like, no, this isn't Kingdom Hearts. Stop that.
I mean, I'd even say, like, we mentioned that Sephiroth fight. Some of the transitions between fighting platforms are really awkward, but for the most part, I was watching some of that stuff and I was like, man, I was watching the Advent Children fight everyone talks about recently, and I kind of think this looks even cooler than that shit. And this is a fucking video game. So, testament to this game's visual quality, or at least like maybe its animation and stuff.
And the thing to me is, and I know this is another thing that's been driven into the dirt, is that they took
That's FTCR. That's what they expect.
they took all of these characters and they designed them in a way that was faithful specifically to Final Fantasy VII rather than Advent Children. Which A, I think everyone appreciates, but B, they also took all these characters that some of them were kind of, I don't want to say flat characters, that's not the right that's not the right term I want to use, but they weren't very fleshed out characters. And they just made all of them amazing.
I think that might be my favorite thing about this game, and that was maybe the thing I was least expecting. I messaged this to you. It's like, if you told me a year ago that I would care so fucking much about the characters of Final Fantasy VII, I would have laughed at you. I was like, because like, there are things, when you're a gaming fan, right? When you go on the internet, you just get these things drilled into you over decades, right? Of like, Cloud's emo and edgy, Barret's Mr. T. You hear One Winged Angel, you know Aerith dies. You know, if you haven't played the game, that's like all you know, and you're like, okay. So going into this game, I was like, Cloud's gonna fucking suck. Barret seems okay from the trailers, you know. I was like, But the more you play, and like, the more I played at least, like I was just constantly like hanging on to every word from every major character. I just needed more from all of them. Anytime Barret talked to Marlene, I was just fucking over the moon. I was like, this is so fucking good. Holy shit. These are like actual human being characters and not the weird Square Enix fucking Final Fantasy 13 what the fuck characters, you know?
Whoever they got to voice Marlene, holy shit, that is one of the best child actor performances I've seen in a game ever.
Yeah, it's really good.
And she's playing like what, a 5-year-old? 6? Like she can't be more than 5.
Something like that, yeah.
And it just absolutely nailed it. Like, that's the thing that we keep saying, but like, it was just
they nailed it, yeah.
Like, every time Marlene was on screen, it was just like, oh my god, we have to protect this city for this little girl.
Yeah, like when you go back to Aerith's house and Marlene's there right after the plate falls, which we'll get to that. But, you know, Barret's talking to Marlene, and like you see it in his eyes, and he's like, I gotta go away for a while, you know, I gotta go save the girl that saved you. And Marlene's like, oh, you know, you better make sure she's safe. I was like, oh, yeah. She's so good.
Yeah, it's just, and the thing is, like at least from what I remember from when I played 7 last year, I didn't, like, Marlene was like there. Like, it wasn't like, I don't remember, like, I knew Barret had a daughter. That's all I don't remember anything about her other than that. And she's one of the standouts. And that's intentional, I think, because she's going to play a major role in Part 2, it seems like, because she has weird whisper abilities. It seems... Did you catch that?
I didn't catch that, but the fact that that's yet another thing to go back and maybe catch is...
Because, well, she connected with Aerith in a different way. Like, she had the staticky flashback moment with Aerith. Like, she didn't have a flashback, but they did one of those. And I was like, oh, she is force sensitive.
Okay, so yeah, anyone Aerith touches gains like some of the knowledge.
No, I don't think it's that, because she was afraid of Cloud, Marlene. That is, I think it's that she's specifically. This might be a thing in the Final Fantasy VII universe too. Now that I think about it, is that I'm going to call it force sensitive at this point. That she has like prescient thoughts, and. Because she's the only other one that does that. Like Tifa and Aerith high five, they hug. Like Tifa never has flashbacks to Aerith dying or anything. Marlene goes with Aerith because she sees that she's trustworthy just by touching her. It seems like maybe I'm misremembering the scene, but like it just seemed weird.
So what I've gathered from like the fucking hours and hours of spoiler content I haven't taken is that Aerith can choose to impart that. kind of thing. Like when she touches Red 13 at the end, because Red 13's like, he's a new character, and she's like, I'm just going to touch your head and get you caught up under the gravity of the situation. Donk. And then he's like, oh, okay. He's like, fucking got it. Let's go. I think it was something like that with Marlene. Especially in the, we got to get out of here because the plate is falling. Rushing of the situation. Like, I'm good. Let's go. Oh, you want to plant flowers when we get somewhere new at the new bar? Cool, let's go. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which... Yeah, the whole thing with Aerith, that you can look at some of that stuff as like level 4 galaxy brain interpretations of what this remake does to steal what that Maximilian dude guy says. We'll maybe get to that. But yeah, I think it's just literally like Aerith can choose in that if you look at her character as someone who is aware of what is happening and going to happen, but can't influence things too much along the way there, then you can maybe be like, okay, that's why she hasn't conveyed this to Tifa, for example.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
I'll have to dig into that, because I know the comments are going to be full of this now.
Everyone in the comments is going to be telling us the huge expanded lore of the FF7 collection, and we're just like, oh, this remake's pretty cool.
Yeah, but the thing is, and this is we kind of already said this, but this is the greatest testament to this game that I think I could say is that I'm excited for part 2.
I'm excited for part 2. Oh my god!
And I'm afraid that I'm excited for part 2 because we've talked about this many times over. I said this in a video where I was talking about how Final Fantasy VII is probably the only game that I was both excited about and worried about this year. Like, I have concerns about other games here and there, and we're not going to talk about those. But like 7, again, I came around to the idea of like, okay, 1's going to be pretty good. It seems like the heart's in it. It's gonna land. 2's going to be an absolute train wreck, and 2 still might be an absolute train wreck. But the stuff they did, the controversial stuff they did that people, the Final Fantasy VII purists hate, makes this the most fascinating remake I've ever played. And that stuff.
You just want to breach into that shit? Cause
fuck it, let's go. I was about to. So the whole thing to me, at least my interpretation of this, is that Final Fantasy VII Remake is not the name of the game. It is the subtitle. So it's Final Fantasy VII: Remake, because this game is, to me, Sephiroth trying to redo Final Fantasy VII's events, because it's a Sephiroth from some other multiverse split off, or from a failed version of the Final Fantasy VII universe, going back, and trying to remake the events that are best to his benefit. So he's not trying to just crash the meteor into the fucking planet because Mama said so, or because he misses his mom. It's specifically like he's going in and influencing things in specific ways to get the outcome that he wants. Whatever that outcome is, we don't know. It's probably still going to be crash a meteor into Earth because Mom. But it was just the whole way through. They had to make Sephiroth a major character in this because he's not a major character in Final Fantasy VII this early on. So they had to introduce him, and they introduced so many things from the expanded 7 universe that were never really touched on in 7. Like Zack's not really touched on in 7 much at all, and he's still not in this game. But the stuff that they do that touches on Zack is enough, I would argue, close to enough at least, for new players that don't necessarily know all the lore to be like, oh shit, okay, something's going on here. And they kind of give away the big twist that Cloud is not Soldier. Like they give that away and they tease it. They don't say it outright, but you can kind of piece it together. They give away all the twists of 7 here because it's going to be 3 or 4 or 10 years until the next game. And it just, everything with the whispers, like, yes, it's probably contrived plot bullshit if you really want to think about it, but that's kind of what Final Fantasy always is. Like,
yeah,
like that's always been Final Fantasy, and I think it's very in the character of Final Fantasy VII specifically to have this stuff. It's not like this is some Kingdom Hearts bullshit. This was kind of built into Final Fantasy VII's universe. We had one of the first instances of an unreliable narrator in gaming history with Cloud in the original 7, and we see better that he's an unreliable narrator here, and we see, like you said, everyone knows that Aerith is gonna die, so the big twist is that she doesn't die. Now, given she wouldn't die at this point in the game anyway, but you would think that if they were gonna kill her off soon, they would have done it at the end of 7 as the big thing, but they fucking killed Barret instead, and then brought him back immediately. Yeah. But, like, there's just so many moments that like this does follow that straight line of the, the Final Fantasy VII plot, and then it wraps around it like a piece of barbed wire and just pokes at it here and there, and all of those little deviations and adjustments and additions, it's just it worked.
It feels like I never thought this remake would incorporate a new plot element, and execution maybe not always fantastic or clearly conveyed at times, right? But the concept of the people who made this game being like, we're going to remake this game, people who haven't played it know what happens in this game. How can we make people excited for this thing, right? Because if this was just a straight remake, you and I would be sitting here being like, oh, it's cool. I wonder what Yuffie will play like in the next part. I wonder what weapons there will be, right? It's like, it's not exciting, but then you look at this and it's like, oh, Sephiroth has the one wing. This must be Advent Children of Sephiroth going back to the past. And then you look at all the times Sephiroth is in the game, he's like delaying Cloud or a character. Because like if you look back, he's like, oh, he interrupts Cloud before he meets Aerith, but then the ghosts keep Aerith in place so that they meet. And then you look back after you beat the game and you're like, oh, and the ghosts keep Jesse in place so that Cloud has to go through with the mission later on, right? And you just start piecing it all together like, oh, okay, that's what they mean by they're trying to, it's the will of the planet, air quote, aka fucking meta bullshit. That's weirdly fun.
So one thing I want to say here, and this is going to be probably the most controversial thing that we've said in this episode. I like Star Wars Episode 8.
Oh.
I like...
So you're invoking Star Wars. Okay.
The reason that I say this is that movie has flaws. Undoubtedly. But the meta commentary within that movie about, fighting to keep the past alive or destroying the past because it only holds you back, and then coming to that conclusion that you need the past to build up a better future, was all a meta commentary about Star Wars fans being shit. And this game does the same thing, but in video game form, and I just ate all of it up. Like, I love the idea of the Whispers being a metaphor for the actual fan base that is complaining about every single change, because they couldn't have made this game absolutely perfect 1-to-1 to Final Fantasy VII. So why try?
So I think the ironic part of that is, if you look at the rest of it, a lot of it is incredibly faithful, weirdly enough.
And the thing is, like they did nail getting it faithful, but like, would it have been as praised as it is? And given it's only like what, an average 8.5 out of 10 game as far as critics are concerned, which that's pretty good,
Yeah.
But
I've seen a lot of universal praise from FF7 fans I know, and like people I follow, stuff like that, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, and the thing is, we're the fans that are going to be complaining about this game are the niche within a niche. Is the thing. Like, this still captured everything up until that last hour. As far as everyone is concerned, it seems to be like this was just stellar. There might be one or two things that they wanted to change, but one of the most faithful remakes that changes everything that's ever existed, which is a weird thing to say, but the fact that they did make those changes, and the fact that they acknowledged, yes, these Whispers want you to play Final Fantasy VII again, but that doesn't make sense to make that game again, because Final Fantasy VII didn't go anywhere. Your memories of Final Fantasy VII are not affected or ruined by this game existing. It is not the fucking Final Fantasy X-2 audiobook after X-2 where Tidus fucking dies because he kicks a bomb. It's not that.
What?
Don't. It's a thing. Don't.
Okay, got it.
It's not that. This exists independently of Final Fantasy VII. Because 7 is available on the PS4. It's available on, I think, the Xbox One now. It's available on Switch. It's available
That's something Nomura even said in an interview leading up to the game. He's like, you should still play Final Fantasy VII. If you want a prettier Final Fantasy VII, you can go onto the PlayStation 4 and play a prettier Final Fantasy VII right now. We're doing something different. And you go, okay.
This plus other remakes that have come out recently, this plus Resident Evil 2 and 3, and a couple others, but mainly those three over the last couple of years, have kind of moved us into a new era of remakes that people don't seem to be fully comfortable with yet, which is the idea of, we are going to remake these games, but we're going to remake them just as you remake a movie, and you change things. You take creative license because you can still go back to the original. Yeah. And obviously we're at the point in movies now that there's, 1,000 shitty reboots of every fucking movie you can possibly imagine. But
can't wait for the Advent Children reboot, by the way.
But the spirit of the original can be carried on with a remake or a reboot, well, depending on who is involved. Not J.J. Abrams. And
God.
The fact that we're now at the point that gaming as a medium is starting to get old enough that we can see these faithful but also creative license remakes happen, that you can have both. You can have it both ways, where you can have the vision of the game you've always had in your head acted out in real life and, blown up to a scale 10 times as big. Mm-hmm. Or you can go back and play the same fucking game you already wanted to play anyway, so stop complaining about it. Just play whichever one you want and let people like what they want. Again, we're talking to the niche within a niche, but it's just...
Yeah.
To have that
is... This game is, weirdly a remake, and depending on how... if you look into it enough, it's kind of a sequel, too.
Yeah.
Which is the part that, Galaxy Brain, I did not expect when this thing was coming out. But the hints were there the entire time.
And that was the thing. Is I went in knowing a couple things.
Okay. Yeah.
So I went in because our buddy Justin had said, "Oh yeah, my buddy just told me something because 7 came out a couple days early because of COVID," and the thing that he had said was "Oh, my buddy just told me, and I don't know if you want to hear this." And then I told him, "Yeah, just tell me, I don't care." He was like, "This is a sequel, not a remake," and I was like, "Oh, I'm more interested now."
Yeah, that's one of those times where hearing a spoiler makes you go like, "Oh."
Yeah, it's just that sort of literary adjustment to me is fascinating.
And the best part to me is that it was obvious since the beginning and no one noticed. Because if you go back to the original marketing materials for this game, right? The announcement trailer in 2015. Yeah, I don't often clue into things because I'm a dense fucking idiot. But the meta commentary in that trailer is the Iranian at hand may bring joy, it may bring sorrow, but we'll forge on. And then if you look in the trailer and remember things that happen in this game, there's a point where Aerith is referring to Sephiroth, every time he gets near me, I lose a part of myself, right? Then you look at the trailer and there's one of his one-winged angel feathers falling near her flower, and then you look at the key art for the game and it's the one-winged angel Sephiroth, and then you start thinking this entire time they were teasing that this is the Advent Children or a different Sephiroth in this game. Just no one thought about the implications of that because everyone just thought it was a straight remake. And now you start looking back at everything over the past 5 years and you're no, it was so obvious.
Even down to the marketing. I saw, right after I started playing the game, right after I started knowing it was a sequel at least, I saw an ad somewhere, it might have been on Reddit or might have been somewhere else, where it was play Final Fantasy VII Remake, the journey begins anew. It was something very, not on the nose at all. You wouldn't think about it. Just that's very basic marketing words that you'd hear. The journey begins anew. You could say that about Mario
Play the
Odyssey.
Game again, yeah.
But that was intentional.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah. Now, we've been going for 50 minutes, so I don't want to push this too long. But
I have no plans, so it's on you, buddy.
Okay, fair. The thing that I was going to say is we could go through some of the other moments, because we kind of jumped mostly. We didn't talk about the actual ending. So let's just do that, and then we'll roll our way back through other things.
Okay.
In case you don't know the ending and you don't care to... I mean, obviously you've been spoiled at this point, so fuck you. The thing about... The way that Final Fantasy VII Remake ends is with a bunch of Kingdom Hearts bullshit, I'll say. But it essentially... Yeah. You go in and you literally fight the concept of fate itself. And you fight these whispers, the ghosts that have been correcting the actions throughout the whole game, where they would stop Aerith from going a certain way, or they would stop you from stopping Jesse from dying. They would make sure that things happened the same way that they did in Final Fantasy VII. Every time. So you were literally being forced to go through that same path. At the end of the game...
And at the final connecting part to the original 7, Sephiroth opens up a plot hole, literally. And it's do you guys want to go through and fucking... shut this shit down? And they're yeah, sure.
And they go through and they go and they fight the concept of fate itself, and they defeat fate, which means that going forward, Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, or if it's Final Fantasy VII Rebuild or Final Fantasy VII Rejuvenate or Regenova or I don't know.
Whatever subtitle.
Yeah. Re Chain of Memories. They, whatever they do, they're not tied to the plot of Final Fantasy VII. Now, I know you had shared a thing from there was a post-interview book thing that had happened or something.
The Ultimania.
Yeah, that thing. Where they talked about, some of the producers were talking about how, this was the weird game that's not going to be, tied exactly to the plot. You're going to see following the same plot with little bits here and there that are different. Which is the weirdest thing to me, because that's an interview with the developers, the dream team that came back together for this game because they don't want to get too old and not be able to make it anymore. Yeah. This was after, like, this was somebody interviewing with knowledge of the ending in the game. So for them to say that they're going back to regular Final Fantasy VII from here when they just defeated the concept of Final Fantasy VII, that doesn't make sense. So I think that's almost either a red herring, or they're saying, we're going to follow that same path like we have before, but different things are going to happen at each pass.
Such as, what if you run into a Jessie finally getting to be the leading lady at the Golden Saucer play, right? But she has no idea who you are. Stuff like that, maybe.
Well, that would be interesting.
That's a theory I've seen thrown around a lot, and I want to see Jessie get that for herself, so I'm like conflicted. I'm like, it has to happen.
Well, and the thing to me is, the way that I interpreted the ending was that they didn't go back anywhere. Like, yes, it changed things, but my interpretation was that it didn't change the events as far as Final Fantasy VII from start to finish that happened in this remake. So Sector 7 fell. Obviously, Biggs didn't die somehow, which was one of the best moments of that ending for me. It was like, I literally was like, I pretty much cheered. I was like, oh fuck, because it was Biggs and Jessie's like gloves. So it was like, oh shit.
The guy from Vanquish lived. Like, thank you, Gideon.
Like, they're still, like that was like, to me, it was like somehow they miraculously survived. I didn't take it as, they survived the plate falling because things happened differently retroactively, because that wouldn't make sense to me.
I've seen some speculation that it's like a multiple timeline converging kind of shit with the Zack ending and that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So that maybe like a different
sense.
Dimension, Jessie wound up in this dimension through all the fucking plot bullshit.
Well, and then again, there's also the whole thing about like the life force of the world exists. It's the same thing as Final Fantasy X, where you're in the fucking ether between the world and the other world and all that. So it could just be, they were reanimated. They're zombies. Yay.
Yeah. I'm just expecting some bullshit from that, because like I feel like, in that thing I sent you that you're referencing, they're still like, we want to hit the same plot kind of beats and go the same places, right? So in my mind, that's like, well, how do you shake things up within those places? And like a quick example is like, there's a Jessie at the Golden Saucer. Maybe it's the one maybe it's the one you're not. I don't know, but stuff like that, just to put the characters in a weird state of like, well, what's going on? Like, and I know we beat Fate, but what is all this? And like maybe there's a Zack running around and shit like that.
Because the thing that also kind of threw me off, is my thought was like, I'm kind of hopeful for Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 now, because they don't have to follow those same story beats, which means they don't have to go through and either find a way to linearly design the rest of the game, that open world area and everything else. Like, they don't have to find a way to do that, because that's going to be a mess if they do that, because there's still a whole world left to discover in Final Fantasy VII. Again, we just scratched the surface. Yeah. So if they have to cover every of the same beats, that almost makes me wonder that they're going to be like hampered in the same way that I was worried about in the first place, because it was like, how do you remake Midgar and make it 30 hours and then just say, all right, here's the other 30 hours of the game. So you can't just throw it together. It's an open world. Like, I can't see them doing it. Like, I guess 13 had the open world at the very end, so they could kind of do like, now it's a thing, but 13 also had no direction. So
yeah.
It's just fascinating. Like, I'm just genuinely curious to see how they're either going to screw it up or knock it out of the park, because there's no in between. They won't just make an it's all right game. There's no way.
Yeah, and I want to feel confident, because holy shit, this game. But they keep talking like, we don't know how many more parts this is going to be, and every time they say that, I just go like, oh no.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to hold out hope that it's 3, and that Act 2 is the Empire Strikes Back sort of thing, where they just lose, like, because they just won. They had the happy ending. 2 cannot have a happy ending now. So whether it's Aerith dying or, here's my theory, Cloud dying, it's because we kind of touched on this when we were talking before this. To me, there's two ways it can go with Aerith. Obviously, there's that she dies because she probably kind of has to die because she's the last ancient. So there's that whole thing of like, if she's the last one, she's probably got to die just by the virtue of like that has to happen in Final Fantasy VII. Mm-hmm. But again,
that's one of the things of Final Fantasy VII. That's like a core tenet is Aerith dying.
But does it have to happen? Like I almost think that considering that Aerith, the person that Aerith says was the first man that she fell in love with is Zack. And Zack died. She knew that Zack died. And Zack is now alive. Because of the ending of Final Fantasy VII Remake, somehow he's alive. So that has to drive Cloud either insane, or that has to change him. Because his whole character is that he doesn't remember a lot about himself. He's got a lot of hazy memories because he's got PTSD, essentially, and he thinks he's Zack now. Like, that's Cloud's character, is that he doesn't know who he is. So, if he finds out who he is because you meet Zack, like, either Cloud has to turn heel, which would be really weird, but then Cloud and Sephiroth teaming up would kind of be exactly the weird, stupid thing that would happen in this game. But it's just, it almost makes sense that if for Zack to live, Cloud, I think, has to die. Like, I don't think that these two can exist in this universe together past a certain point, because Cloud is falling for Aerith and Tifa at the same time, and there's the whole like, oh, we don't want to make the player, there's no guaranteed like yes or no, like this is the correct love choice between the two, but like depending on how you play, Cloud and Aerith try and fall in love, or Cloud tries to fall in love with Aerith, and Aerith says, do not fall in love with me, you can't. And it's I don't know.
So you think like maybe at the end of the part 2, Sephiroth just shows up and like impales Cloud?
It'd be a way to do it. I mean, you want to get you want to get a response.
People talking again.
Yeah, because how do you surprise people? The surprise is either that Aerith doesn't die or that she dies at a point that you're not expecting. And if Cloud can see the future a little bit, kind of like Shulk style, because of this whole plot shenanigans, if he can see that, and Aerith knows that she's going to die at a certain point in the game, potentially, do you see Cloud move her out of the way and take the knife or sword?
And then, if you really want to get down the rabbit hole of like tinfoil hat stuff, you remember the post Sephiroth fight where he's up in space and he's like, "Yo, you got 7 seconds. What are you going to do with him?" I don't think this is it, but someone timed the stabbing scene and it's like 7 seconds.
Oh my!
So people are like, "Oh, he could be referring to that. He might be referring to like 7 seconds before a meteor hits or whatever, right?"
No, that would make sense. I mean,
this all plays into the craziest thing about this remake is that we just played a straight remake, essentially, of Final Fantasy VII, and we're here at the end speculating what happens next, which is crazy.
Yeah, and it's just
it's brilliant.
At the same time, it could also just be that Zack takes the sword, because I think you're going to see Zack at some point. But do you bring Zack in part 2, and then can you tell enough of the Zack story when he's alive and have him and Cloud interact, and then kill him off in the same game? Can you do that?
From a game design structure, it totally makes sense though, because like there's your tutorial thing. You're Zack, and you're somewhere else, and you're somewhere far removed, right? Sequels love doing that thing where it's like, oh, you're somewhere new, you're somewhere unfamiliar, you're coming to grips and getting your bearings, stuff like that. So that totally would be a good way for them.
Yeah, and
to start the next game.
Yeah, and even having Zack just be a separate chapter set where like you go back and forth and you just jump between areas. I mean, this game already ripped off Yakuza, so why not do it more?
Yeah, just I was gonna say do a Kingdom Hearts 2 thing, but yeah, that.
God, so should we talk about the Yakuza stuff, because we just kind of talked about the ending, and let's go back. Man, let's go back from there.
If you haven't played this and you're listening to it, and you're like, maybe I'll play it, maybe I don't. you should play Final Fantasy VII Remake and then get to Chapter 9, because if you're not sold by Chapter 9, Chapter 9 will sell you.
Yeah.
It really feels like the people at Square Enix, the people at least in charge, I don't want to say it did happen, but it feels like it happened, where they just marathoned all the Yakuza games and went, that was cool. How can we put that in what we're making? Let's make budget Yakuza for a chapter. And then it's budget Yakuza for a chapter. You go around this weird little district, you fucking get into weird, stupid minigame bullshit, doesn't make any sense. You talk to weird people, you do squats.
And then later you dance and you sing.
You dance and...
Well, you don't sing, but...
in your heart, you're singing.
And it's just...
It's just so good.
It's so Yakuza. And it's again, this is another thing that everyone's already said 100 times over, but it's just genuinely so goddamn Yakuza. And it works. I didn't expect it. I mean, fucking when you fight Shinra Jr. on the top of a skyscraper, and and he's got dual guns that he just whips out and do a shit ton of damage to you and stagger you. Like, that's literally out of every Yakuza final boss fight ever. Every Yakuza game ends with you fighting somebody with guns somehow at the top of a skyscraper, pretty much without fail. So it's just so.
There's a Majima in this game.
Yeah, there's a Majima. Like, it's just so ridiculous, and I love it. Like,
one of my biggest video game weaknesses, ever since I was a kid, this is always one of my biggest weaknesses, where there's a game that has a story to tell and it takes its story seriously, and to contrast it, there's a bunch of weird fucking goofy bullshit you can get into that happens parallel to the main story, and no one acknowledges that it's out of place. It is out of place, but no one, brings it up, and it just happens. And that's fucking Chapter 9 of this game. And granted, this stuff was in the original, right? But it's all the stuff that people were like, oh, maybe they'll take out the squats, or how do you handle Cloud getting into a dress in 2020? And then they were like, well, that's where we put the most money of the game into, clearly. Let's have this lavishly produced QuickTime event sequence where you're dancing to a musical piece as Cloud, the internet's edgelord. Just... fuck. It's so good.
And
it's straight garbage, and I love it.
Now, I forget. You've been playing through 7 more recently. Did they also have pull-ups? That's new, right?
I think pull-ups are new.
Okay, because squats...
I think there's maybe someone doing pull-ups.
Yeah, because everyone knows squats, but when you went back, and then Tifa's the one that does the pull-ups, I lost it. I was just like, oh my god, like, it's just... And fuck that minigame. I mean, absolutely straight fuck that minigame. But, like, it was just amazing. Though. Yeah, I mean, fantastic music. But it's just, I would have liked to see there be a little bit more you could do in that area. It would have been nice, but, it's only one chapter, and honestly, there are points in the game where they kind of have too much to do. Like, chapter 14, it's like, okay, I want to continue the story, but here's a bunch of side bullshit.
And you're vaguely guilted into it. It's like, oh, you should help as many people as you can before we go. And then it's like, oh, the plate just fell. Oh, I care. Fine, I'll do it. Fuck you, Chadley. I'll help you out.
Yeah.
His name's Chadley.
Chadley.
Do you know the spoiler of Chadley?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I was going to mention that here if you hadn't, because I remember just going, what?
Yeah, that's a weird one. But it's also right in the tone of this game.
Yeah. This is barely related, but I just needed to put this out there for you and someone else to hear, because only one person made it this far, of course. Playing through original FF7, Remake has the same squat animation, in case you maybe don't remember. It's that weird fucking arm swing out up thing. When you get to the town after Midgar in the original game, and Cloud does his unreliable narrator shtick, right? He's in a wagon with Sephiroth and some other soldiers as they're on the way to Cloud's hometown. And Cloud's like running around, amped up, talking to other people like, hey, how you doing? You doing good? Okay, you doing good? Okay, cool. And he goes up to Sephiroth, and Sephiroth's just like, you need to tone it down. And then Cloud just starts doing the squat animation next to him, and he's like, I can't wait to get there. And it was the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen. Was him doing that next to Sephiroth, the fucking famed King of Evil.
God.
And he's just doing the squat animation for like a beat too long. Oh, I'm enjoying that game. But
so
yeah.
I think one other thing that we do have to mention. I mean, we mentioned Yakuza, and it really, really, really is Yakuza, and I love it. I mean, there's even a section where you kill hundreds of people in a vehicle chase sequence twice. Like
vehicle chase sequence twice. There's a secret underground Coliseum thing.
Yeah. Two. There's two. There's the second Coliseum in Chapter 17, right when you're like, oh, I'm so excited to beat this game and see what happens next. Oh, you want to do more of an arena? No. Like, what?
Yeah. There's the VR Coliseum. Yakuza has VR Coliseum with not Doc Brown.
Oh, fuck, you're right. We just need a VR board game.
You can just connect so many lines. It's great.
It's the other thing that I think we have to mention is obviously the plate falling.
Yes. Okay.
No, you can go first.
Yeah, I think I mentioned like at the start of this, there's like a few points where like the game was grabbing and gripping me and like not letting me go. Right. That was, and I'll lead to a funny moment with this. Oh my God. But that was one where it gripped me, and like that was like my fucking mental check point, right? Of like, oh, I care a lot about these characters, this world, this weird fucking environment. Like that's when it clicked for me. I was like, I am totally fucking invested in this game, and I did not expect it. And I was just like, holy shit! Like I am like sad. I am like borderline crying from a plate falling in a Final Fantasy VII remake. Something again I never thought I'd be saying, but it was so impactful. And I was just like, you know, especially if you go back and compare it to the original, right? Biggs is there, Wedge is there, Jesse is there, but this game gives you enough time with them and makes them, you know, I mean, fucking Badger from Breaking Bad voices.
Yeah, I hated that for so long, and then by the time that we think he dies, I was like, no, Wedge, don't fucking die. Like, and then I stopped myself and I was like, wait, do I care about Wedge? Do I care about Badger? Like,
I was a little predisposed to liking him because he reminds me a little bit of TJ, honestly. So I like innately liked this big, you know, dark haired, goofy guy. I was like, oh, that's TJ, okay.
God.
But yeah, the plate falls and fucking. It's the scene with Barrett where I just couldn't take it anymore. After that, where he's like punching up the rubble and like screaming out everyone's names, and like you look into his eyes and like fucking. The animators conveyed despair in his eyes. And I was like, holy shit, yeah, I care about Final Fantasy VII.
This game didn't have dead eyes. Like that's another thing. Is like this game nailed the eyes in every scene. Just about.
Which is great.
Like,
because a lot of the times the girls will look directly into the camera and talk to you because they're your waifu. I noticed that a lot, personally.
But yeah, it's... like, there were points in that chapter where it, like... And the thing is, like, so let me go back and reiterate that, you know, I don't have an attachment to Final Fantasy VII going into this game. Like, I like it, but every time that, you know, Aerith's theme played, it would hit. Despite, and the thing is, that happened in the original 7 too. When I started playing it, I was like, "Oh, this hits!" Like, even though yes, I know what happens, and yes, it, you know, maybe I'm expecting it and I'm ready for it, but like every time that theme played, it's such a good theme at drawing out emotion, and they just made it better here.
Yeah,
and so like there are so many scenes where, like, I mean, just all of that chapter with the plate falling is just that's the best chapter in the game. It is. I think, I mean, to me it is. Like, there's just, like, Cloud running up this tower and trying to save Barrett, and, you know, getting there, and then, I mean, first, obviously, Biggs dies, or originally dies, and it's just, like, Cloud realizing that this is real. Like, Cloud realizing, like, yes, people are dying, and, like, I care about them. And, like, that moment that Biggs dies, you are Cloud. You're like, I care about this guy.
Yeah. This fucking Charlie Sheen looking motherfucker. You care about him.
and then it's just it keeps going. Like you have Wedge having that big moment of breakthrough of, you know, I need to do something, I need to help, you know, and he thinks, oh, I'm useless because he can't do it himself, and then he does it. Like he you know, he can't stop the guards from from keeping the gate. You know, he can't get the guards to open the gate up, rather. And he's like, "Oh, I'm useless." And then Aerith gives him the pep talk, pretty much, and you know, he does it. He succeeds, and that was like just, oh my god, such a good moment. And it just every moment of that chapter was just a huge character moment for every single character. I mean, Aerith going through the town. And the excuse, and I know some people don't like this, is that they don't like that people didn't die in the plate crash, but a lot of people died in that plate crash. Like,
yeah, just because you didn't see like literal people getting squashed. Like I mentioned this to you right before we started recording, right? Something I didn't click with until playing the original game is like, oh right, people live on top of the plate. These people had no idea what the fuck was happening.
Yeah, and like they just
dropped 1,000 feet.
They just fell and died. And that still exists in this game. Like, you didn't stop the people from the top plate. They're still dead. It's just that you stopped the people from underneath in your specific community, in this massive, several miles long community. Like, it's essentially Manhattan got crushed, and you cleared out 1 block of Brooklyn. It's like 50,000 people still died.
Yeah,
and
it's just powerful, all of that.
Yeah, I mean, Aerith going through, and first off, that's one of the first times you play as Aerith, if not the first. And that was the moment where I was like, oh, I think they're going to kill Cloud. Not in this game, because I knew that wasn't going to happen, but like that was when I was like, oh, you're giving you control of Aerith. And
they're pointing the idea that you'll play as other characters throughout this.
Yeah,
getting you worked into that.
Everybody has their own solo section, except for Tifa doesn't really have a true solo section. She has like the section with Aerith near the end, but like Barret has his own section totally by himself. Aerith has a section that section by herself.
Tifa gets the awkward controlling Shinra HQ.
I'm not counting that. That's like one section, not like there's a whole part of a chapter where Barret's by himself, and then Barret's the main character.
Yeah.
Whereas Tifa's only the main character for like literally 30 seconds when you're in Don Corneo's house. But yeah, it's just like I mean, Aerith going through and telling people, like, everyone's like running and panicking, and just Aerith trying to calm everybody down. It is just, oh my god, like it's hard not to feel that.
Mm-hmm.
And then
that's one of those things. Like, to me, the remake completely to me, it's like one of the many moments, especially going back now, where I'm like, oh, like Midgar being a 40-hour game is totally justified, because you play that in the original and it's like the same beats are there. You don't play as Aerith in the town, right? But you go up the tower, you talk to Biggs, and you have the same exchange. I think Wedge is there, you have the same exchange. You talk to Jesse, you have the same exchange, right? You go up the tower, Rude and fucking Rude, God, what a fucking name, and Rufus are there. They escape on a wire. Like, it's the same shit, but the remake, A, for everything it did up to that point, makes it more impactful, but B, you know, there is a point where like technology did limit what they were doing, right? And it just works so much better here.
Yeah,
It, to me, it grounded in all the themes. It's like, oh, you're ascending, but you're losing everything along the way, right? And then everything falls, even though you reached the top and you did your best.
Just because fate has another decision that day.
Like, yeah, the simple themes like hit a lot harder in this version of the game.
Like, they really don't drop themes, and given they shouldn't, because it's a remake, so they should have all their ducks in a row. But it just, like, again, like once you get to the part with Jessie, like, you see Jessie pulling out her grenade, and like you see the whispers, like, oh, she can't survive this, so they have the grenade blow up on her, essentially. And
yeah, to me, did you watch End of Evangelion? I know you've been going through it recently.
I haven't gotten that far yet.
Oh, fuck, I was going to invoke that. There's a lot of scenes in End of Evangelion where, like, you'll see a glimpse of character trying to make a last stand, and then it cuts away, and you're like, oh, they didn't make it. To me, this had, like, that exact same energy of, like, oh, come on, Jesse. Oh, no, fuck. And then camera cuts away, and you're like, oh, shit. Same thing happens with Wedge at, like, the end of the game, where he's, like, pushing against the plot ghost, and he's like, I gotta fucking do something for somebody, and then like you hear a window crash and it cuts away, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah, and the thing is, Wedge isn't dead. Like, there's no way Wedge is dead. Like, at this point, I don't think any of them are dead. I mean, Jesse's the one that might be, but I mean, you see Biggs alive, you don't see Wedge, but you know Wedge is going to come back because they killed him off twice and it didn't work. So
that's a key thing. Sidetrack while we're here. Usually in a game or like any story, right? Having a thing where it's like, well, no character's really dead. Usually that just removes the floor on like any tension, and I'm like, okay, well, who fucking cares then, right? Like, nothing has any impact if they can still come back to life, right?
Yeah.
It's weirdly interesting here. Like, there is this weird, overlying thing of like, well, maybe they'll find a way to come back, but I don't know. For some reason here, like, that didn't deflate anything for me, and it doesn't deflate anything for me thinking about where this story could go. Do you feel that, or is that just a me thing?
No, I agree. Because the thing is, from here, if they're dead, they're dead. That's
kind of what I'm thinking.
That's where I'm at. Because like, you can't. The fate's gone. Like, there is no
plot ghosts are dead. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, in regular Final Fantasy VII, unless you're Sephiroth, you don't come back. Like, Aerith dies, and she is dead. She's never coming back. So, from this point on, it's like, this is that, what do they call it? What's the phrase they use at the end? The unknown journey.
Sure, yeah.
Whatever at the ending they have a little text pop up. The unknown journey will continue, or whatever it's called. And it's like, okay, so this is untreaded waters going forward. And to me, that's like yes, Biggs, Jesse, and Wedge might be alive, but like, this is it if they die. And I'm sure Wedge will die. But the thing is, they're going to make you wait for it. And they're going to make you like really, really want him not dead. Because the whole thing was like, I didn't care if he died at the start of the game. I was like, I know he's going to die. He just dies unceremoniously. He gets thrown off the side of the fucking thing and he's dead. But this time it's like, he gets thrown off. He survives. He gets crushed with his fucking cats. And I was like, no, I care. I was like, no, not Wedge. Like, poor guy, but also his cats. Like,
yeah.
And then they're all, I mean, at least one of the cats is alive. And just by the end, like when he's like saying everybody's name, because he says like, Aerith, Tifa, Barrett, Wedge, Jesse, whoever he says, Wedge, he says his own name. And then he's like,
he knows his
he's
own
like,
name,
Cloud, it's got to be worth something, Cloud, or whatever he says, like something close to that. And it's like, like he just wants Cloud. He's a tsundere for Cloud, or Cloud's a tsundere for him, I guess. But it's just like again, just there are moments where like these characters just hit, and the fact that they gave Cloud a good character, like I don't think he's a good character in regular 7. I think he's a good blank slate. I don't think he's a good character. I mean, there's so much left to the expanded universe of 7 that needed to flesh out who Cloud was. But here it's like when you see him, grab Biggs's hand and say, "No, you're coming with me. Like, you have to go say bye to the orphanage yourself. Like, you're not dying." And with Jesse, where I mean, first off, like just the whole back and forth of Jesse thirsting over him was fucking amazing.
Yeah,
but just her, like, I mean, Jesse's whole character, like, another show stealer. Like, I mean, it's just like her death was the point where I was like, no, I was holding it back.
And like literally all I remember from her in the original was her saying like, you can press X to jump onto the ladder here to climb down into the Mako reactor.
That's all she does. But like here they just give her so much room to play, and just the whole, like, I mean, the fact that she that's what breaks Tifa. Like, and that's a big thing too. Is like that's the point that breaks Tifa, and that leads to Cloud's moments later on where he, like, she's saying that these deaths have to mean something. And when he holds her, I don't know if you got the Tifa scene or the Aerith scene in chapter 14, but
there's two different ones. Interesting.
Yes, there's it depends on the choices you make throughout the game.
Okay.
But like with instead of Tifa, it'll be Aerith, and Aerith, that's when she says, you can't fall in love with me. It cannot happen. Like, it just doesn't work. Like, physically, it's not possible. But with Tifa, like, when she starts crying, and then Cloud tries to hold her like Barrett does, and but he doesn't know how, because he's just like dumb. So he just starts squeezing her like a fucking child squeezes a pet dog.
He's so awkward.
But it works here. Like him being that blank slate works because you see it, and you see him actually growing instead of just Rah, Sephiroth, who am I? Rah, like.
Yeah, like I was kind of looking for that in the original, especially going up the tower, and he just doesn't contribute as much to the conversation. And I was like, oh, okay, that's fleshed out.
Yeah.
Like, I understand why I don't remember much of Cloud from the little bit I played, because like there wasn't as much there.
Yeah. But it's just
circling.
Yeah, go ahead. Keep going. No, I was just about to circle back to it. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say circling back to like talking about the deaths at the end, and like how you think like Biggs is still going to die. If that, again, to me, that just wraps back around to this very interesting meta layer. Because if you look at everything that's happening is something Sephiroth maybe orchestrated to happen, right? It's like, if you're Sephiroth, you want to give Cloud hope for parts of it to keep egging and stringing Cloud along to whatever he's working toward, right? And if you want to look at this in a meta narrative, like Sephiroth is stringing the player along with hope too, of like, well, I hope Biggs made it out. I hope Jesse made it out. I hope Aerith doesn't die, right? But the cruel thing about Sephiroth, I imagine, is that, you know, he gives you that hope and then he just fucking stabs Aerith through the heart again. So I think if you look at that back of that meta way, it's just fascinating to me that they are giving the players hope, and I think they're going to fucking crush it even harder later on. And I think that's kind of what they're building with a little bit on some of that stuff. It's just to be like, oh, you remember that Aerith scene and that stuck around for so many decades? Well, we're going to fucking top it somehow.
Yeah,
and
because the thing is,
it's fascinating.
Like they can kill Aerith, and it'll still mean the same amount now. It would not have meant the same amount before.
Oh yeah,
like it would have just been a thing that, you know, new players, you know, if they didn't somehow know, like they would hit. And like, yes, it would hit more now because you know more about Aerith because you've been playing the game for, you know, twice as long. But like, it's just, again, the fact that they can go either way, like the fact that they have the freedom to, like, yeah, we might kill her off. You don't fucking know. Like when you get to that point, when you're in the was it the mana pools? Is what not the mana pools, the Mako pools, or whatever that place is that she dies. I always forget what the water is. If it's just water, it might just be water. But like when you get to that point in the game in Remake Part 2, you're gonna like just be sweating. Like you're gonna be like, what the fuck's gonna happen? And like that might even be the end of Part 2 somehow. I don't know how they'll stretch it out that long, but like that could be the end of Part 2 is like that scene of that kill, because you're not gonna fight Sephiroth every game. So like they might.
Cloud was getting like weird compulsions to kill her himself around that point in the original game, wasn't he?
I think.
Because I feel like there's a point where it's heavily implied that like he hit her and someone went, "What are you doing?" And like they didn't play it up that much. But if you think about how this game can handle that, and it could be like the fucking, we're in a spoiler video, spoilers for Metal Gear Solid, but the end of 3 where you have to pull the trigger and kill a boss, right? And it's like, what if they make you kill Aerith as Cloud? Like, what if that's a twist? It's like, oh my god.
Yeah. As soon as you started saying that, like, holy shit, that could be a thing. Because, like, I mean, like, Cloud's now, like, so far not gone yet, but, like, he's having these really bad moments of like, worse than he did in the original game, of just blackouts and, you know, trying to control...
Sephiroth influencing him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so... Fuck. Like, they could literally... I can literally just see it in my head of just, like... Aerith facing away from the camera, and then like, you know, the TV static on the edge of the screen or something, and like you have a square button prompt or something like that. Like, oh, they could totally do it.
Yeah, it's there's so, and there's just so many different options to kill Aerith. But or
it's a really dark statement.
Like there's so many different ways you can do any of it now, and like again, that's just, I know we've said it like 12 times by now, but like, that's how many parts the game's gonna have, so it's fine.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating. Like, yeah.
I'm invested in the story of Final Fantasy VII.
And now we gotta wait fucking 7 years for the next game.
It's all the little shit too, because it's like, I don't think I'm ever gonna play fucking, what are the other games, like Crisis Core,
Dirge of Cerberus. Is there a third? The phone ones before, is there a before Crisis on your phone? Not on your phone, but like on Java phones. I think there was a before Crisis or something.
There is a before Crisis where they reveal that Shinra Rufus led Avalanche or something in secret, which is something I learned and went, oh, that makes sense, huh? That's a very Kingdom Hearts way to dole out very important information like that.
Yeah.
But hey, good to know.
I think Nomura took over by that point, so it makes sense.
Yeah, but it's just stuff like, I'm worried that I'm going to want to play them, though, because I heard that in whichever one Zach gets the emails, whichever game that is.
Crisis Core.
There's like the meme of Sephiroth's hair, right? One of the guys on the inside you hear from is like Gunsel or something, and then in FF7 Remake when you're going through Shinra HQ, he's like, oh, you're Cloud. I got to go tell Gunsel. like, wait here, man. And I'm like, oh no, I care about this game. They invoked that game. Oh, I gotta.
I don't think you're gonna need to play Crisis Core to understand Remake.
I don't think I'm gonna need to, but I think I might.
I mean, you don't.
Want to.
On the bright side, you don't need to play Dirge. No one needs to play Dirge, but like Crisis Core is the only one that's like, as far as I don't remember Dirge being plot important in any significant way. Like it might.
Dirge fleshes out Vincent, right? Is that
who cares?
what it is?
Who cares? He's just shittier beta version of Auron from 10.
Here's my FF knowledge prior to this, right? I always thought Dirge of Cerberus and Vincent Valentine were like the dog character, and then I played this game and I was like, oh, that's Red 13? Oh. So that's how fucking little I knew coming into this.
Dirge of Cerberus, it's just Nintendogs. You're just petting Red 13.
I'd play that now.
You did.
Shit. How long have we been going for? I've been afraid to look.
Hour 20 minutes. Yeah, it's been a while.
Only 3 times longer than we were going to. That's no problem.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we've hit my notes of holy shit, it's good. Characterization's good. Roshi's Majima. I have a note that's where does Roshi go? I was kind of expecting him to come in at the motorcycle part at the end. A little missed opportunity, but makes sense considering what happens directly after it.
My favorite thing about Final Fantasy VII Remake is when you beat the game, they're like, yeah, you can skip the motorcycle sections now. Like, I saw that, and I was like, yeah, okay, I didn't know I wanted that, but thank you. Because those are really fucking long, and they're fun, but they're really long.
Yeah, that's weirdly generous. Thank you for not making me have to do that fucking final boss fight again.
Why can't Yakuza have that?
God. Wall Market is budget Yakuza. Yep. Plate falling is crazy good. People prefer the old plate version. We got that. We didn't mention that Hojo is creepy. He's the human embodiment of fucking slime.
They absolutely nailed him. Like his visuals are just gross, and it just works. And that's all. Oh well, we didn't touch on the one thing you were going to say, which was the Family Guy funny moment, which is that you had said to me after you finished chapter 12. When the plate falls, you were like, "Oh man, I'm really sad that did Biggs die? Because I saw the other ones die." No, I don't.
Like,
go ahead. I don't remember.
I was
what you
like,
said.
Biggs better not have fucking died.
Yeah.
And then you messaged me and you were like, "Do you mean Wedge?" I was like, "What?" I was like, "Why is the fat, funny, haha, fat character not named Biggs, and the small guy who can get through things is not called Wedge?" What?
It's so good. Like you, like,
then
it was just. That,
I was having this emotional moment on my end, right? I was like, "Oh my god, these guys better not have died." Kevin's played this game. I'll message him and like get this out of my body. I'm like, man, I really fucking liked Biggs so much. I can't believe it. And you're just like, "Do you mean Wedge?" I was like, I couldn't even get his name right. Oh god,
such an emotional moment. I'm feeling so sad. Wait, who are you again?
Wait, who? Oh. The last note we didn't touch on is how often in this game you'll approach an NPC and you'll hit the square button to talk to them, and then you both stand there and stare at each other for literally 7 seconds, and then a conversation starts.
See, that's what Sephiroth was saying. You have about 7 seconds or less. You got to figure out if you're going to talk to him or not.
Fuck. He knew. Okay. That's our full circle. I think that gives us credence to stop recording. If anyone made it through all of this, I'm so sorry, and thank you for leaving 8-paragraph-long comments correcting us. The Golden Bolt, where can I find more of your voice?
Well, you can find me at youtube.com/thegoldenbolt, where I make really stupid videos at this point. They used to be informative. They're not anymore. My most recent video was one about all of the Uncharted games that you really can't play anymore because Sony had a bunch of Uncharted games that you don't know about because they were bad, including one sponsored by Coke Zero. So crack open a cold one, give it a watch.
Hashtag drink Coke Zero. And I'm editing one of your future videos with slight FTCR sensibilities, so if you made it this far and need more, subscribe to his channel. And subscribe to us, I guess. I don't know. Unsubscribe if you are subscribed. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a fucking Final Fantasy VII fan now. I hate Square so much.
I agree.
This isn't the future I was meant to have. Okay. Thank you. Let us know what you thought of the plate falling section down below. Bye.
Anyone else think Red 13's kind of cute?